3 spine-chilling true stories of terrifying encounters alone at night, secrets exposed. Claire had just finished her shift at the diner. The fluorescent lights buzzed above her, the clatter of plates still echoing in her ears. She wearily stepped into the cool night air, cradling a bag of leftover fries, unaware of how quickly that comfort would evaporate. As she settled into her minivan, her phone lit up, a series of texts from an unknown number. "I saw you leave the diner. Nice dress. Your kids are asleep. Nice and quiet." A chill raced down Claire's spine. She glanced around, the dimly lit street felt too big, too empty. Dismissal tried to settle in. Just a prank? An unsettling joke? But the simple joy of the ride home had vanished, replaced by a chill that seeped into her bones. That unease became tangible when the back door screamed in protest as she opened it, the crack of splintering wood raking her nerves raw. And as she stepped inside, a whisper crawled out from the shadows, sending her heart racing. Just the wind, she thought desperately, grasping at any shred of normality. Days turned into nights filled with paranoia. Icy fingers of dread wrapped around her heart. A piece of glass crunched beneath her foot on her way to the kitchen. Her back door had shattered. The children's laughter turned hollow, filled with echoes of fear. In the dark, they whispered of monsters and shadows. Claire lay awake, shell-shocked by the overwhelming burden. Every creak of the floor seemed to breathe life into her darkest fears. The very walls of her once happy home felt as if they watched, waiting. Just a week ago, the neighbors had seemed warm and inviting, with their picnics and smiles. Now, each familiar face shimmered with suspicion. She watched from behind her window, tracking their movements. Mr. Johnson who mowed his lawn at midnight. The twins who giggled under the covers but kept their eyes on the window as if something lurked just outside. They were supposed to be protectors, her allies, but now they stood as shadows of doubt, blurring the lines of community. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening," she mumbled to herself as her hands trembled with dread. YouTube is making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications, so you don't miss future videos. Claire's thoughts faltered, and panic reasserted its grip. Suddenly, there it was, a figure in her driveway, cloaked in darkness. Adrenaline shot through her veins. "Who's there?" The words felt feeble, but they left her lips like a challenge. All her instincts screamed to protect her children. The silhouette didn't answer but shifted, stepping into the soft glow of the porch light. Her gut twisted as recognition flooded her mind. The figure was someone she trusted, someone she thought she knew. The very thought sent a new wave of horror crashing over her as familiarity blurred into malice. Each heartbeat felt deafening in the silence as she scanned the yard, eyes darting for safety. The fear wasn't just a story now, it lived just outside her door, creeping closer, slipping under her skin. And then she heard it, a child's giggle, ringing pure and innocent, but too close. Was it one of her own? Or had the dark figure claimed another? The line between safety and threat began to unravel. Would she uncover the lurking evil? Or had she drawn the eyes of the predator too close for comfort, just outside her window? Claire felt her heart race as she noticed a second silhouette gather behind the first. It was faint, obscured by night, but the tension sliced through her. The porch light flickered, casting chaotic shadows across the yard, distorting the figures before her. What was happening? Her breath quickened into a frantic rhythm. "Who's there?" She called again, her voice shaking. This time she felt a pinch of courage, but doubt gnawed at her. The children were asleep, blissfully unaware, shielded by innocence and untainted dreams. She couldn't risk what lay outside. The familiar faces twisted into strangers under the pale moonlight. The initial figure stepped closer, revealing familiar features but marred by something sinister. It was Bob, her once reliable neighbor. His eyes glinted unnaturally, wild and cold. Just a week ago, he had shared cookies over the fence, but now those same hands stained by kindness looked clawed, creeping with malice. Claire. His voice slithered through the air, sweet and menacing all at once. Come outside. You have to see this. The kids, they're calling me. A guttural scream echoed in her head, a primal instinct to flee or fight. But the looming darkness wasn't just physical, it coiled tight around her chest, squeezing. Forcing herself to breathe, she took a step back, her mind racing. Did she dare to believe him? Did she dare let him in? I'll call the police. She shouted, scrambling for her phone. The flick of her screen lit the darkness, illuminating shadows dancing in the corners of the yard. Their laughter rang against the stillness, a sickening twisted mimicry. Panic twisted like a knife in her gut. You don't need to do that, Bob said, stepping forward, a grin splitting his face, too wide, too unsettling. It felt like a grotesque mask slipping down over his features. Let me take a look at the kids, Claire. They're just so lonely. Her gaze darted towards the window where the children slept, little shadows too innocent to comprehend the danger lurking just outside. What if he was right? What if they really were calling him? But a greater fear pulled at her. She didn't want to find out. Not now. Not ever. No. Stay away from my kids. She screamed, backing against the front door, fingers trembling to find the lock. As if responding to her fear, the second figure shifted. Claire's breath caught. It was not Bob's shadow cast upon the ground, it was another silhouette, darker and deeper. The air felt heavy, thickening with the weight of unseen eyes, an entire audience waiting for her next move. I just want to help, can't you hear them? Bob urged, his tone dripping with sickly sweetness. The whisper of wind through the trees morphed into a choir of giggles, tugging at the edges of her sanity. Her phone vibrated violently in her grip, fighting against her instincts to remain silent. Heart pounding, she swiped to call for help. Claire, come out, the second figure murmured, a voice like molten silk, so close now. She shot her gaze over her shoulder. Shadows crept closer, the voices grew louder, blending into a chilling lullaby. Something primal within her screamed to barricade the door, to protect what was hers. But at what cost? A pounding beat echoed in her ears, the tether stretching thin. Her pulse raced, the fragility of her world was unraveling, and then, as if time paused, the children's giggles morphed into screams. She had to make a choice: stay inside with her fear or confront the nightmare outside. Help us, Mom! They cried again in unison, the sound piercing her heart. And Claire understood, sometimes monsters were not bluffing. Sometimes, they wore the faces of those you trusted. The light flickered once more, and in that moment, darkness covered the yard like a blanket, swallowing her defenses whole. But her fear propelled her into the unknown. She swung the door wide, what awaited her on the other side? Claire stepped into the abyss, the cold night air washing over her like an icy wave. The porch creaked beneath her, the familiar sounds now echoing strangely in this new reality. The hazy light shimmered just beyond the threshold, but the shadows were restless. They danced and twisted into grotesque shapes, pulling at the corners of her mind. Bob, she ventured, hesitating. The figure remained still, a grotesque statue under the moonlight. Bob's sinister grin froze in place, his eyes reflecting something unfathomable. Behind him, that second silhouette shifted, darkening the edges of the night. It wasn't human. Come closer, Claire, the first figure urged sweetly, almost lovingly. Don't be afraid. They want to play. The giggles morphed again, filling the air like broken records, haunting, unsettling, alive. Deep inside, Claire felt her resolve falter. Her children were out there, but who was this thing that looked like her neighbor? Leave my kids alone! She shouted, innovation sparking her panic. You're not him. You're not Bob. He recoiled slightly, but his twisted smile only widened. You're wrong, Claire. I'm more than I was before. We're all becoming more. And I'll help you understand, you just have to listen. The second figure moved forward, and Claire stepped back instinctively. The ground felt unsteady beneath her, a sickening awareness settling in. This wasn't a conversation, it was a trap. Mom, a voice echoed behind her, soft, pleading. Lily. Stay back. Claire yelled into the dark, but her heart raced. What if her children really were hurt? What if they were in danger because of her defiance? We offered them something special, Bob continued, tilting his head like a curious dog. Soon, you'll see. They want to be with us. Terror coursed through Claire as she took another step back, her hand fumbling for the door. No. You stay away. You can't have them. Claire, please, Bob's voice dipped lower, velvet wrapped in venom. You're just delaying the inevitable. They're meant for this. They're mine now. She was sweating, her chest heaving as the whispers swirled around her, an intoxicating mix of despair and confusion. The soft cries of her children melded with the laughter wrapping her in a suffocating embrace. Do you hear them? The second voice pressed, now sneaking around her. They want to be free, Claire. They just need you to join us. We can all be together. Frantic, she turned, making for the door. The wood felt solid beneath her fingers, a lifeline in the chaos. But just as she reached for the knob, something clutched her shoulder, a cold grip that sent shockwaves through her spine. Don't run away, Bob whined, his voice dropping to a growl, the sweetness draining away. You're part of this too. You can't deny it. With a surge of adrenaline, Claire twisted from his grasp. She flung herself back into the house, slamming the door behind her and locking it fast. Heart pounding, she pressed her back against the door, breathing heavily. The shadows beyond it shifted and swayed. Mom! Please! The children cried, their voices filled with a desperate urgency. Lily! Ethan! She shouted, rushing through the house toward their room. The hallway felt alive, breathless with anticipation. She could hear the whispers of the dark figures still lurking outside. Suddenly, a crash sounded against the door, and Claire screamed, spinning around. The kids were stirring, she could see silhouettes through the curtain, shadows struggling against the fabric of their innocence. Mommy! Their small voices echoed, filled with confusion. Claire's heart sank. The dangers outside pressed closer, she could feel their malicious energy swirling around her. They promised something dark and twisted. And the reality of the choice ahead weighed like a stone in her heart. With trembling hands, she yanked the curtain aside. But what she saw on the other side sent her reeling backward. The street was flooded with shadows, each one pulsating, resonating with an unnatural hunger. And in the midst of it all, she finally understood, some monsters didn't need to enter her house, they were already here. What do I do? Claire whispered, caught in the storm. The children's cries echoed through the air, mingling with the dark laughter waiting just beyond the door, and something inside Claire snapped. She had to figure out how to save her children. But first, she needed to discover the true nature of the darkness surrounded her. What had those things really done to Bob? What was happening to her children? Claire's breath hitched as she stared at the wall of shadows beyond the window. They pressed against the glass, crafty and insistent, like a living nightmare trying to seep in. Every pulse of dark energy seemed to whisper secrets she didn't want to know. Mommy! The urgency in Lily's voice brought her back. She turned, shaking off the icy grip of fear. The kids needed her. She had to act. Stay away from the window. Claire yelled, urgency prickling at her spine as she darted towards their room. The door felt like a barrier between sanity and chaos, but would it hold? Behind her, another crash reverberated through the house, heavy, ominous. Ethan! Lily! She pressed on, desperation tightening her throat. Entering their room, the sight grounded her. The kids huddled together on the bed, wide-eyed. Ethan clutched a worn teddy bear, its eyes glinting with innocence and loyalty. "Mom, they're coming." Lily whimpered, her small hands digging into the comforter, knuckles white with fear. "I know, baby, but we won't let them," Claire assured, her voice barely above a whisper. Panic clawed at her chest, but she had to project strength. The chilling laughter echoed closer outside. "What did they want?" Ethan asked, the tremor in his voice betraying his facade of bravado. "They want to take you away." Claire's heart sank. How could she explain what was happening? "But we're going to fight them. We won't give up." Another violent crash reverberated from the door, rattling the wood. She decided. They needed a plan. "Okay, listen. We're going to lock the door, then we'll find a way out the back. We can get to the neighbors for help." Lily nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks, while Ethan pulled her closer. "What if they follow us?" Claire swallowed hard. "Then we run faster." The door shook again, loud and relentless. It was an assault. She couldn't wait any longer. With trembling hands, Claire locked the door and grabbed a chair from beneath the desk, sliding it under the knob. It felt flimsy against what was out there, but that was all she had. "On the count of 3, we move," she said, trying to sound steady. 1, 2. A sudden silence fell outside, heavy and thick. Claire exchanged a glance with the kids. Their wide, frightened eyes told her they felt it too, the lurking dread, the anticipation of horror just outside the door. 3. She shouted. The moment she pushed the door open, a blast of icy air flooded in. Her stomach dropped. In the hallway, shadows writhed like serpents, teasing her senses. "Mom!" Lily screamed. Claire glanced back at her children, panic igniting an urgency that overpowered her fear. "Run!" she cried, sprinting down the hallway. She felt shadows grasping at her ankles, icy fingers trailing up her legs, threatening to pull her into their depths. "Mommy! Wait!" Ethan's shaky voice called out, and Claire dared not look back. They darted toward the back door, but another shadow swooped in, wrapping around her like a shroud. Claire fought against its cold grip, but it tugged her back. "Let go of her!" Ethan yelled, his small fists swinging at the darkness. It was a valiant effort against the unknown. "There's no escape, Claire," a voice hissed from the depths of the shadow. It sounded like Bob, but twisted different. The mockery stung sharper than a blade. "Embrace it." Claire felt tears stinging her eyes as she strained against the darkness. "I will not lose my children to you," she screamed, fury igniting within her. Another crash resonated this time. It was the sound of wood splintering. The front door was gone. "They're coming!" she cried, feeling the heat of panic claw at her throat. With one last desperate surge, she yanked herself free, and propelled forward toward her children. The world felt like it was collapsing around her, but she wouldn't let the darkness swallow them. "Listen. We have to get to the basement," Claire yelled, heart racing, her voice trembling with the adrenaline pulsing through her veins. As they raced down the narrow hallway, shadows swirled like a storm, and the laughter crescendoed. Would they ever escape? Or was it already too late? Each footfall echoed with uncertainty as they plunged into the unknown. What awaited them in the basement? Would it bring salvation or the ultimate horror? The basement door creaked open, releasing a damp, musty odor that cloaked Claire and her children like a thick fog. It was a dark, yawning mouth that invited them into the abyss. Heart racing, she ushered them inside, the shadows slinking behind them like predators. "Close it! Close it!" Lily sobbed, her voice sharp with panic. Claire obeyed quickly, as if the slam of the door could fortify their fragile sanctuary. They plunged into darkness, but Claire could feel the fabric of fear tightening around her. "Can someone get a light?" she whispered urgently, struggling to calm her racing heart. Ethan fumbled in his pocket and produced a small flashlight, its beam flickering weakly at first, then steadying into a dim light that illuminated a small corner of the basement. She gulped, the shadows seemed to sway at the edges of that feeble light. "We can't stay here long," Claire said, her voice tight. "We need to find something to barricade that door." Ethan nodded, his face pale, eyes shifting nervously. "What if they come down here? What if it's worse?" "I won't let them hurt you," Claire replied, adrenaline numbing her fear as she turned to search. The basement was a graveyard of forgotten memories, old furniture, broken toys, and a heavy chest that begged to be opened. Suddenly, the laughter from outside echoed down the stairs, sharp and mocking, rising in crescendos. All three froze. "Did you hear that?" Lily's small voice quivered with dread. "Yeah," Claire whispered. She glanced at the cracked walls, her mind racing. Whatever those things were, this darkness was their ally. They could slip in through any crack and squeeze past any door. Ethan raised the flashlight, its beam flickering across an ancient wooden ladder that led deeper into the basement, spiraling into nothingness. "What's up there?" Desperation clawed at Claire's insides. "We can't go up. We have to secure ourselves here." Another crash reverberated through the house above, far more violent than before. The ground trembled beneath her feet. She swallowed hard, trembling hands reaching for the nearest object, a rickety bookshelf. "Help me." They pushed the bookshelf in front of the door, sweat beading on Claire's forehead. Shadows crept closer, the laughter lingering like a chill, filling the air with a sinister pulse. "Mom, what if we can't stop them?" Ethan's voice broke like glass. Claire pressed her lips together, fighting against her own rising fear. "We have to remain quiet. They're stronger when we scream. We can't think of them, we can only think about us." Suddenly, the flashlight flickered, plunging them into darkness. Claire's breath hitched, panic washing over her in waves. "Ethan, turn it back on." "I can't," he cried, the beam sputtering like a dying star. Frozen silence enveloped them, heavy and oppressive. Every second pulsed with impending doom. Claire could feel something hungry in the air, something that feasted on fear. "Shush," she hissed, holding her breath. They waited, hearts pounding, the distant laughter ringing like a cruel lullaby. Out of that suffocating silence, a new sound crept in, a faint tapping, like nails scratching wood. It grew louder, more insistent. "Mom, what is that?" Lily whimpered, her voice barely audible. "I don't know," Claire admitted, the instinct to protect burning fiercely within her. The tapping turned into a loud thud, then another, and finally a rattling on the door. It was relentless, slamming against the makeshift barricade. "Leave us alone," Claire shouted, rage and fear igniting within her. The laughter escalated, intertwining with the banging, mocking her resolve. "You're not safe here, Claire," the twisted voice echoed with malevolence, echoing impossibly from the shadows. Her mind raced. "We need to get out." She wanted to break the cycle of terror that closed in around them. "Where?" Ethan's eyes glistened in the half-dark, panic spilling out of him again. Before she could respond, the bookshelf shuddered, the door cracking with a shattering sound. Claire's heart dropped. "We'll fight. Stick together." Just then, the flashlight flickered back to life, casting their silhouettes against the wall. But behind them, the shadows shifted, sinister forms emerging, stretching like claws reaching for their flesh. "Run!" "Down the ladder!" Claire screamed, adrenaline surging, but their escape was cut short, leaving them to confront the darkness one last time. What awaited them among the shadows? Would they be able to withstand the chaos, or would the night claim another family? Claire's heart thudded in her chest, her instinct screaming at her to move as the shadows expanded, warping into twisted figures that loomed ominously behind them. The flashlight's beam danced erratically, and her world was reduced to flickers of clarity interrupted by oppressive dark. No. We have to go. Claire clutched Lily's hand tightly, urgency igniting every fiber of her being. She pulled her daughter toward the rickety ladder, its bottom rungs barely visible in the gloom. "Ethan, are you with us?" "I'm right here," he exclaimed, his voice quavering. He hesitated, glancing back at the door, which continued its relentless assault as the bookshelf teetered dangerously. A low growl echoed from the depths of the darkness. It was unlike anything she had heard, a deep, guttural sound that churned in the pit of her stomach. She could feel time slipping away, the second hand ticking down to their doom. "Now, Ethan." With a sudden surge of adrenaline, they scrambled toward the ladder. The moment they began to ascend, the bookshelf gave a final protest and tumbled, crashing against the door. Claire gasped, expecting a shattering breakthrough, but it held. The shadows momentarily faltered, as if thrown off balance. Claire clasped the cold, rough wood of the rungs, her mind racing. "Just get up. Go." She urged the children forward, her voice rising above the chaos. The ladder creaked under their weight, and each step felt like climbing a mountain of dread. As they neared the top, an ear-shattering screech bounced off the walls, sending chills down Claire's spine. "Hurry! Hurry!" At the top, a thin sliver of light beckoned from a hatch. It felt impossibly distant yet tantalizingly close. The children clambered up, their small bodies pushing against the anxiety-driven urgency. Ethan's breath came out shaky as he reached the hatch. "I can't get it open." With dread pooling in her stomach, Claire reached the landing and grabbed the edge of the hatch. Hands trembling, she shoved it upwards. It resisted, heavy with the weight of secrets, but she pushed harder. The latch clicked, and she flung it open. Light spilled into the darkness behind them, illuminating the twisted shapes just as they stalked forward. The laughter rose again, enveloping them with raw, vicious delight. "Get inside," Claire hissed, shoving her children into the beam of safety. She followed, heart hammering against her chest, slamming the hatch shut behind them as a burst of shadowy fingers reached out, missing her by inches. Breathless, Claire leaned against the hatch, panting. The small, dusty attic was still, a surprising oasis compared to the tempest below. For a moment, silence reigned, granting them a false sense of security. "Mom, what now?" Ethan panted. I don't know," Claire admitted, rushing forward to survey the dusty space. Old boxes lined the walls, memories entombed in layers of dust. There was an ancient trunk in the corner, rusty locks sealing it tight. "What's in there?" Lily asked, a tremor in her voice. "Let us not open it," Claire said instinctively, dread flooding her mind. "The last thing we need is more." A sudden crack echoed from below, the sound of wood splintering and metal twisting. The attic shuddered, and once again, the mocking laughter erupted, now accompanied by frantic scratching against the hatch. Desperation pooled in Claire's gut. "We need to find a way to barricade this, too." "Mom!" Ethan shouted, pointing. "The window." She dashed to the far side of the room, fear dancing in her chest. There, a small window lay nestled among cobwebs and dust. "Help me." Together, they wrestled the frame open, revealing streets far below, bathed in pale moonlight. Shadows flitted past, merging with the trees below. As Claire peered outside, she felt a chill race down her spine. The laughter grew louder, angrier. Claire turned back to the trunk. There was no time to waste. "We'll have to check inside. It might give us something we need, all the help we can get." Ethan nodded, determination sparking in his eyes. "What if it's not empty? Then we pray it's not worse than what's." "After us," she muttered, trembling fingers reaching for the locks. With a sharp click, they shattered the silence, and dawn seemed to grip the night just as the shadows whispered promises of doom. What secrets lay hidden in the trunk? Would they be the key to their escape or a gateway to a fate worse than the horrors they had already faced? The lock sprang open with an unceremonious thud, shattering the tense quiet of the attic. Dust spewed from the trunk like an ancient ghost released from its confinement, swirling in the shaft of light. Claire hesitated, swallowing hard. What had they unleashed? Mom, Ethan's voice trembled, a stark reminder of the fear that clutched at them. Ignoring the gnawing dread that threatened to settle in her chest, Claire lifted the lid. Inside lay a jumble of items: a tattered diary, a rusted knife, and a small porcelain doll with cracked features. A chill crept over her as she recognized the doll. "I saw this in the living room before," Claire whispered, the memories crashing back like a tidal wave. It had belonged to a girl, a long-gone neighbor whose fate had turned into local legend. The whispers of her disappearance had faded into the background of their mundane lives until now. "Mom!" The scratching Ethan's words were cut off by another frenzied assault against the hatch, sending splinters cascading to the floor. Claire's heart raced. It was only a matter of time before whatever hunted them found its way in. She snatched the diary and flipped it open, her fingers straining to read through the filth that had settled over it. Words spilled out in messy handwriting, revealing stories of fear, of something that haunted the attic, something that lured and trapped its victims in this troubled space. "It says here," Claire's voice faltered as she read, "the shadows feed on fear. They thrive when you're weak. They're feeding on us now, Mom." Lily's wide eyes echoed the truth they all felt. More frantic scratching clawed at the hatch, dangerously close. "We have to barricade it," Claire yelled, scanning the attic for anything they could use. Old furniture, broken shelves. They needed something solid enough to hold back the darkness. Ethan darted to a pile of boxes and started pulling them over, while Claire kicked a table toward the hatch. "It's not enough," Ethan cried, anxiety crunching his voice. "Lily, help your brother," Claire barked, as her own panic spread like wildfire. She could feel the laughter below them, louder now, a mad crescendo echoing through the walls. Pushing forward with all her strength, she wedged the last box against the hatch just as a heavy thud reverberated from behind it. "Mom, look!" Lily pointed at the trunk. Claire turned to see the porcelain doll's head. The wicked glimmer in its eyes made her skin crawl. It moved. "No, no," Claire muttered, heart hammering. "It can't be possible." But the doll's gaze was fixed on her, lifelike and eerie. "Mom, we have to get out of here," Ethan yelled, the urgency threatening to tear him apart. Claire grabbed the diary, shoving it into her bag. "We need to keep moving. We can't stay here." The laughter exploded around them, a twisted taunt that seemed to dig into her very bones. Desperately, she swung the window open wider. "We might have to jump. Are you crazy?" Ethan yelled. What if another loud crash from the hatch interrupted him, and the door splintered, sending a jolt of reality crashing into Claire's mind? "Now!" she screamed. Together, they scrambled toward the window, driven by an instinctual need to escape. The darkness was clawing its way through the gaps, the laughter becoming a deafening roar. As they prepared to leap, Claire glanced back at the trunk once more. "Wait!" she called out, her heartbeat thrumming in her ears. What if there was something more that could help them? But could it truly be trusted? The walls shook under the pressure of the presence that sought them. She had to decide, fast, should they risk everything for one last mystery, or leap into the unknown, hoping to shake off the shadows forever? As they clung to the window frame, ready to escape into the terrifying night, the laughter stopped, suddenly replaced by the deafening sound of silence. What had they awakened in that trunk? What awaited them outside? The night stretched ahead, dark and unfathomable. The choice loomed, heavy and present. The silence was alive, it pulsed around Claire and her children, an entity of its own, tightening its grip like an iron vice. She glanced at Ethan, his eyes wide with fear, face pale and trembling. Lily's small body pressed against her, seeking comfort in a storm that felt all too real. Jump! Claire urged, catching her own breath in her throat, the window still open like a gaping mouth. The world beyond looked dark and treacherous, but it felt far preferable to what was clawing its way up from beneath them. Just as Claire moved to take a step back, the darkness stirred, shifting in a way that sent a wave of ice through her veins. The familiar laughter broke free once more, but now it was different. It was closer, more intimate, and it echoed with a chilling softness that felt like fingers tickling her spine. "Mom! Look!" Ethan pointed beyond the window, eyes reflecting pure dread. Claire followed his finger and gasped. The porcelain doll hovered just below the attic's edge, its cracked smile mocking them, eyes alight with an unnatural gleam. It didn't just sit there, it seemed to sway, as if teasing them with the weight of their fear, urging them to abandon all hope. "We can't stay here," Lily whimpered, trembling, pulling at Claire's shirt. The attic creaked ominously, the old wooden beams shifting with a life of their own. Claire fought the rising panic, forced herself to think. The trunk. That diary. Could the items inside hold the key? But a part of her screamed that they should leave immediately, that the darkness was waiting, watching, wanting them to hesitate. Another loud crash shattered the silence, the barricade shaking as though something on the other side was desperately trying to unearth every vestige of their safety. "Claire." It was Ethan, and his voice pierced through her hesitation. "Let us go." But her feet felt stuck to the floor. "Ethan, wait." She reached back for the diary, grabbing it with shaking hands. There was something else in the trunk, a clue, a method, anything that could help them fight back against this creeping horror. "Come on," Ethan begged, voice breaking. "It's coming." The laughter surged again, and this time, it was accompanied by a thumping sound. It was relentless, like a heartbeat thrumming on the very walls surrounding them. Was it the doll? Was it something worse? Claire's heart raced as she wrenched the diary from her bag, flipping desperately through its stained pages. The words seemed to swim before her eyes. "Lily, do you remember the name of that girl?" "What girl?" Lily cried back, fear slicing her words. "The one who owned the doll." Claire shouted. "She disappeared. What was her name?" As if summoned by her plea, the attic shadows curled and twisted, forming into shapes that danced on the walls. Part of Claire wanted to scream, but she couldn't let that fear take over. Not now. Suddenly, Lily's eyes flickered with recognition. Amelia. Her name was Amelia. Amelia, Claire repeated, the name rolling off her tongue like a curse. A sound from below the door splintered a little more. The shadows responded, pushing against them as if alive. Whatever lurked behind that door was growing impatient, eager. It wanted in. Lily whimpered, stepping further back. "Mom, please hold on, hold on." Claire's breath grew shallow. "There has to be something here, the diary, it has to tell us how to stop this." But the shadows grew bolder now, licking at their heels, hungry for fear, hungry for them. "Mom, we can't wait," Ethan yelled. Torn between the pull of the trunk and the desperate need to escape, Claire felt her mind spiraling. What if the only way out was through the window and into the unyielding unknown? She made her decision. "We jump." But before she could act, the attic shuddered violently, and an echoing shriek pierced through the air, a sound that felt like it clawed at the edges of sanity. What had they truly awakened? The doll's smile twisted wider, and Claire could feel it. The darkness was closing in, and they had nowhere left to run. As she made one last attempt to scramble toward the window, she realized this wasn't just about escaping the attic, it was about confronting the dark, terrible truth of everything they had unearthed. What did the diary hold that even the darkness feared? Claire's heart hammered in her chest as the attic shook like an angry beast. With every pounding thud echoing through the wooden beams, it felt like a countdown had begun, a race against something sinister that was faster than they could imagine. "Mom!" Ethan's voice quivered, cutting through the growing din. "We need to go." The dark shapes in the corners of the attic thickened, pulling closer, reaching for them. The laughter, now a cacophony of twisted echoes, filled the air, smothering her thoughts. Claire grasped the diary tighter, her fingers trembling as it slipped against the sweat-slicked skin of her palms. Amelia, she mumbled, repeating the name as if it would conjure an answer. Is she the one? Lily whispered, her voice barely breaking the shroud of darkness. I don't know. Claire screamed, a wave of frustration washing over her. The shadows seemed alive, pulsating with energy, wrapping around her like spectral chains, dragging her deeper into despair. Suddenly, the porcelain doll's eyes glowed in the murky light, and for a moment, she thought she could see a glimmer of something human within. Was that fear? Regret? No, it was something colder, like the grasp of death reaching out from the very teeth of the abyss. Jump out of the window. Ethan shouted again, fire igniting in the urgency of his words. He pulled at Lily, his small frame pushing against hers, the desperate energy of a boy who refused to accept doom. Mom! Please! Okay. Claire barked, her mind racing. There had to be something in that diary. She flipped through the pages, heart sinking with every turn. Time was slipping away, the shadows crawling up her legs, weaving through her thoughts like a hunter closing in on its prey. Find a way to stop it. Ethan yelled, and Claire's gaze darted over the handwritten lines. The ink seemed to swirl and shift, words morphed into sentences that danced just out of reach. Then a phrase caught her eye. The soul must return to the doll to end the curse. What does that mean? Lily cried, stepping backwards, her back brushing against the window frame, the cold presence of the outside world flickering behind her. It means Claire's thoughts whirled. To banish the horror, one of them would have to become the offering. Would the darkness finally be satisfied if they willingly sacrificed a piece of themselves? No. Ethan shouted, tears brimming in his eyes. I won't let you. Shadows thickened, swirling toward them, the laughter intensifying until it felt like a living thing, wrapping them in a cocoon of despair. The attic felt less like a room and more like a trap, squeezing them with each heartbeat. Mom! Ethan lunged toward her. Please, we can jump together. But could she do that? Jump into the unknown or take the chance of surrendering to the doll, the very object of their torment? Mom! We need to decide. Ethan's voice trembled, fear tinging every syllable. A shriek shattered the air, so piercing that it sent Claire reeling back, its sound feral and wild. She knew they were out of time. Whatever lurked behind the door was pushing harder, ready to breach the last barrier of their safety. What if Amelia was just the beginning? Claire's breath hitched. What if this is a web and we're caught? Without another thought, she heaved the diary into the shadows, a desperate act of defiance. Find her! She screamed, hoping that somehow the darkness could unravel, could be called back to its source, but the shadows flared, angry, coiling around them as the laughter erupted into a roar, a cacophony that drowned out her thoughts, swallowed her fears whole, leaving only the dire question echoing in the growing void. What if this was only the beginning of the curse? As the attic continued to shake, Claire knew they had to jump into the unknown or into the trap beneath their feet. What lies beyond that window? She wondered as the darkness thickened, a suffocating presence wrapping around her like nightfall, and then she saw it. A flicker, a moment of clarity in the chaos. A face, twisted and tormented, watching them from the shadows, a reflection of the fate awaiting them. Whatever lay outside, whatever sacrifice awaited, would it be worth the price of freedom? The attic quaked, shadows writhing chaotically as Claire clutched her children's hands. The air was electric with fear, each heartbeat echoing the relentless pursuit of darkness. What do I do? She thought, her mind racing, but she refused to falter. Jump! She screamed, desperation fueling her voice. We have to go now. Ethan nodded, taking a deep breath as he pulled Lily close. They stepped towards the window, but just as they did, a blinding flash of light streamed from the waist of the doll, illuminating the attic. In that split second, Claire saw something unforgettable: the anguish on the doll's face. It mirrored the struggle they had all fought against. "Mom!" Lily cried. "Go!" They stumbled forward, heart pounding in their ears, but Claire felt trapped in time, the pull of the darkness colliding with the warmth of her children. "Jump!" she screamed again. 3-2. Just then, the laughter escalated into shrieks, echoing around them, eerily close. "We're not safe here!" she yelled, feeling the shadowy mist curling around her ankles, gripping them. With one last surge of adrenaline, she propelled them from the edge into the moonlit air. They fell, weightless, and then thud. They landed on grass, the impact knocking the breath from Claire's lungs as a wave of warmth washed over her, flooding the chill from her bones. They were outside, but unknown dangers still loomed, shadows swirling behind them where their home once stood. "Are we safe?" Ethan whispered, trembling in the moonlight. "No," Claire said, forcing herself to stand, pulling them up. "But we have each other." She scanned the darkened street, her instinct screaming danger was still close. The shadows from the attic stretched, reaching for her, whispering her name. "We need to run." They darted, hearts racing, feet pounding against the asphalt. As the wind whipped around them, Claire could hear laughter in the distance, but it faded as they fled. In that moment, she found a flicker of hope. The light from a neighbor's house pierced the horizon, safe sanctuary. "Over there." She pointed. Her heart raced with renewed hope. They sprinted towards the light, the laughter fading into the night behind them. Just a few more steps. But as they neared the porch, a chilling whisper echoed, "You can't leave us, Claire." It was Bob's voice, low and daunting. Claire's breath hitched as she skidded to a halt. There, looming just outside the light, was a familiar silhouette. It wore Bob's face but twisted in a way that sent her panic spiraling again, a grotesque mask lurking in the dark. "Don't look back!" Lily cried, tugging at Claire's arm, but Claire felt the weight of recognition drown her. "Bob!" she shouted, fighting against the pull of guilt gnawing at her. "You're lost." With those words, a surge of will broke through her fear. This was the choice. She had to break the grip of the curse hanging unshakably over her family. In that moment, she saw beyond the shadows, she saw an outstretched hand, beckoning. "Let my children go!" she roared, voice wrapping around the truth of her love, driving the darkness back momentarily. Ethan and Lily stood behind her, resolute, reflecting the fire Claire felt inside. "We love you." Ethan alongside Lily echoed, a defiant stance against the encroaching shadows. With each fervent declaration, light flickered fiercely from where they stood, momentarily forcing the darkness to retreat. And as it twisted away, Bob's figure writhed, overwhelmed by the raw intensity of their love. In that moment of clarity, Claire felt the memory of the doll surge within her, the connection of sadness and hope entwined in resistance. "Sacrifice one to work on us," she spat, holding her ground. "You aren't our past. You are our fear, and we break it today." The laughter morphed into hideous screeches before dissolving, and with the final echo of her loud defiance, Claire took a step forward, feeling the energy shift around them, like the very ground breathing a sigh of relief. They spun around, uncertainty simmering but hope brighter than fear. The shadows began to drain, slinking back into the earth as dawn stretched across the horizon. Each pulse of light seeped into the morning, a bright, undeniable truth. They had faced the darkness together. As light enveloped them, Claire held her children tight, deep gratitude surging within her. "We did it," she whispered, tears cascading down her cheeks. "We broke free." In that moment, they felt the warmth of the coming dawn and turned towards a future forged in resilience and love. The horror was behind them, fading into whispers, as sunlight filled the world around them. With a final glance back, they left their fears behind, stepping into the new light. Together, they walked forward. The shadows were nothing but a reminder. They had conquered fear and found solace again, and they would never go back. And just like that, Claire understood, true strength lay in facing the dark. Now, before you leave, listen up. You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to boost the algorithm. We need your support. Don't just sit there, flood the comments with your thoughts and theories on this wild ending, and for real, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this conclusion and feel this emotional ride. This is the moment to show you care. Don't wait even one more second.